All right, we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this webinar. We put together this topic, which we're going to get into, and brought some of, I think, the most knowledgeable, most in the weeds people on this topic, but also some of the funnest people to talk to that I've ever personally talked to. And this webinar, if it is anything, it will not be boring. We're gonna have some conversation. We're gonna have some fun with this one. I got two of my good friends here, and I'll let them introduce themselves. But what the topic of this webinar is building a team. So if you're in the process of building a team, you have a team, you're thinking about building a team. In fact, I'm going to put a little poll out to everybody. And I would just like to know, we check back on this, but just like to know, like, where are you at in your journey, right? As far as building or thinking about building a team. And how lead conversion and lead generation plays into that, right? So I got Troy here from CINC. He's an industry veteran when it comes to lead generation, lead conversion, all things leads. And then we got Josh, who's a good friend, good client of CINC and Sisu, who has done the thing, built the team, and actually runs a call every single week around lead conversion. So Josh, maybe to start, I would love a little intro from you. Give us a little background on you. How'd you get into real estate? Tell us about your team and what you're focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a panelist a couple of months ago on a state advisory board, and I got to looking at all the people that I was paired with, and I got to thinking, okay, you got different types of people and how they got into real estate, right? I would consider myself a legacy, right? So I say that by saying my dad was a land developer. Built homes, for the lack of a better word here, was like a track builder, built 40, 50 homes a year. And I kind of fell into it by default. It's just like, okay, I'm going to get into real estate because nobody can sell my product better than me. That was absolutely stupid. I had no idea that I didn't know how to sell real estate. I knew how to build homes. I didn't know how to sell real estate. So when the market shifted down in 2008 and 2010, I thought, you know what, I need to learn how to sell something. So from that point in time, it kind of became my mission on how do I learn how to sell. So I started diving into every aspect of that in the way that I could. In 2014, I'd kind of been going through for a few years. I partnered with my partner now, Christy. We ended up got CINC. And then we were off to the races from there. We've really never looked back. So we've just kind of kept bolting things on. And Sisu was a fantastic bolt on for us to try to track our business. We opened a mortgage company, which was also another fantastic way and great bolt on for our business. And I think that when you're looking at operating a team, there's only so much market share you can have. I don't care what market that you're in. So we started to reevaluate what the total value of the client was once they were prospected. And in that way, we tried to get into more avenues of what that was. So, one of the things that whether your aspirations are to build a team, whether your aspirations are that you want to work as a husband and wife duo, whether your aspirations are you want to work solo, this is an exercise that I do a lot to really put that into perspective. If you have a buyer and a seller and a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, and you're getting a mortgage on that house, let's say FHA, do you know how many people get paid on that transaction? So instead of letting a bunch of people put things inside the chat, I'm going to be a spoiler alert here. It's 37. There's 37 different people that get paid on that transaction. So the reality is, if you don't think you're on a team, you're very wrong. You're just not the head of the team, right? So I think that when you start to look at it in that way, then it really puts a redirect focus on kind of what team means inside real estate. So you can have a team like what we do. We have 27 agents or so that work inside our real estate team. We have a mortgage brokerage team that is 9 agents. So that understanding that was the catalyst that really propelled us to where we are now, is that type of mindset to understand how much cooperation it takes to be able to be successful in this business.
Super cool. I got a ton of questions I want to ask you, and we'll dig into some of that. Troy, I'd love a little background from you. You've been in the industry a long time. A little background on CINC too, right? Obviously, you're here representing CINC. One of the reasons at Sisu we wanted to bring CINC in is because you guys, I mean, you've been in the lead generation game as long as anyone. You've generated millions and millions, maybe millions. I don't know if it's billions yet, but millions and millions of leads, right? So you guys have a perspective on lead gen and conversion that none of us have. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and about CINC.
Yeah, well, appreciate it, Zach. Known you for years. It's always good getting on with a familiar face. Been in the industry now for about 12 to 13 years in the prop tech lead gen specifically. Been at companies like Boomtown, KB Core. I've been here for 6 months at CINC. Was really what led me here was lead generation. That's why I'm so passionate about this title. Like, really the only ones to focus on hyper local lead generation. Can get in details, really a whole call around that, not really for what we're talking about today about, helping team leaders grow, helping them kind of change their business. But I love that no matter how long through that 12 to 13 years that people want to say, well, no, it's about listings now, or it's about just buyers. If we've seen what people estimate has changed, it really hasn't changed. Like, it really is still the following up, the keys and metrics, monitoring what your team is doing. Because as you grow, just now at Tom Ferry, Alvaro, our CEO, was given a speech on this specific topic of over 2 million leads we looked at. And basically 1% conversion. There were some 4%ers, there were some 1%. But if you're doing 1%, you're doing pretty good, right? But it was watching that those 4%ers, sometimes they don't necessarily grow to huge teams, because what happens when they keep getting bigger and bigger is they let things fall through the cracks, right? They let things kind of go unaccountable, and then don't realize how that hurts their bottom line. So, I've been fascinated on how much things have stayed the same, though we in the industry, and I'm sure we're guilty at CINC and everyone else, on our side of the tech world, of trying to get keywords like, well, I'm gonna say AI. Not that, I mean, AI is very important. I love it in our product and everything, but it's just like people get enamored with, well, AI is gonna take over. AI is gonna do this, or the buyer agreement is gonna do this and that. And it's like, guys, just stick to the focus of recruiting for as a team leader, right? Making sure people are hitting the metrics, but making sure you're also feeding your agents. Like, that was kind of the tag that stuck with one of our sales leadership retreats is a couple months ago at CINC. I was like, end of the day, I would love for our marketing campaign is feed the agent, because that's what they like, right? I mean, Zillow's proven that this time and time again that they love to eat the sandwich. But yeah, so to me, it's kind of sticking to that message of as much as don't listen to the noise, like, things are pretty much still the same, and these processes that we've taught for over years, you follow them, they're gonna still be true today. Trey Willard, Zach, a big fan of Sisu. It was funny. He was, buddy of mine sitting right in front of me. I snapped a picture. I'll text you afterwards, where it was funny to watch him go through the talk, and Aldo's got the stats up of like lead sources, what you should be getting return. And it was cool to see, systems working together with accountability / what's performing and not. But yeah.
Yeah.
And always let me know too. Zach's got the radio voice. Me and Josh have got the country radio voices. So if you can't understand, happy to repeat whatever.
Yeah, let us know if anyone needs a translator in the chat. Let me know.
Yes.
Brilliant country. Yeah. No, you guys got the radio voices for sure. All right, so getting in the meat of this thing. I love what you're saying, Troy, but kind of the topic of this, like, it's a tricky balance between, like, when you kind of get further along in your journey, kind of like what you were talking about, Josh, and you get really good at generating and converting leads, right? That is kind of the table stakes for even thinking about starting a team, right? Once you get good enough at generating and converting leads, where it almost becomes overwhelming, at that point, I think that's where you have the permission to, like, start looking and bringing people into your world, and kind of like what Troy's saying, feed the agents, right? Feed the people on your team, because you're proficient enough at it. There's also a balance of, like, if that's the only thing you're recruiting on, like, if they join you for a lead, they'll leave you for a lead type thing, right? And one of the reasons we want to have Josh on here is because your retention is through the roof. Like, that you haven't just build a team, you retain a team, which I think is really cool. But Josh, maybe talk us through some of this. Like, how do you make lead conversion part of your value proposition, lead gen and lead conversion part of your value proposition, and bringing these 27 agents to you? But also, how do you think about retention and making sure that's not the only thing?
Fantastic question. And I think that is something that a lot of people, I think it comes with a definition, right? So I think that there is an inherent difference between building a team and building a lead share cooperative, if that makes sense, right? So there's most of the people that have built what I would consider a lead share cooperative, it does not operate like a team, you know. So what we're going to have is we're going to give you this person, and then if you can do whatever, we'll give you this person, and you know, and if you do whatever, I'll close it at whatever rate. And if you do this or that, you know, I think that the reason that we have the amount of retention that we have, and that we have the draw that we have in the places that we have it, is because we embrace the idea of a team, right? So I think that everything we do is team centric. Now we also have a division of our company that is a solo agent. You know, that's a horse of a different color. We also have another division of our company, another brokerage that is a referral based only. Say you needed to get out of the business, instead of making your license inactive, you can move them over to this company. And, you know, so what we've also tried to do is understand that every business and not business, but every industry has seasons, right? So we've all seen what a season 3 years ago, 4 years ago looked like, and now we see what a season today looks like. And then there's going to be a totally different season a year from now or 2 years from now. So I think that being able to, if you want to build something that people are going to find a place in and feel like they're at home, it has to be team centric, and it also has to have levels outside of that to encompass when people graduate from the team, or God forbid they fell out from the team, right? So based on whatever their plight is. For us, the cornerstone of our business has been based around CINC since 2014, because there's one thing that every single real estate agent on earth has in common, and they want more opportunities. They want more leads. They want more opportunities. They want to know. And then when you give somebody that opportunity, it's not enough just to give it to them. You absolutely unequivocally have to work with them in a strategic way so that they understand how to convert the lead. And it sounds so simplistic, right? Well, don't all I have to do is just call, and like they want to go see 123 Main Street, and I go show them, and is that not it? You know, and that's I think that people get you know, beside themselves on what does it take to actually convert a lead, you know. And I think that when you start talking about conversion, it's conversation, right? So we do more conversation training than we ever do conversion training, because our business model exclusively is built on this one premise, and it's that we're going to be relational, not transactional. If you want to be transactional, then you can go to the big Z and you can pay them all of your money, and then they can just send you something, and you can go lock your kids in a closet for 30 minutes and go show a house and come back. You know, that's not
recommended, by the way.
Yeah,
My 18-month-old would not appreciate that.
So, but that is the, you know, that's the difference in being able to convert at a high rate. Is the premise of how do you have conversations, you know. And I think that for us, what we try to do is every single person that comes in, yes, CINC is a super intricate part of what we do, but you know, we look at there's a chair that I have in the office, and I ask them when I'm recruiting them, you know, why do you think that chair is so stable? It's because it has 4 legs. Right? It has four legs. That's why it's stable. Now go over here and get on a pogo stick or a unicycle and see how difficult that is, right? So you want to have all of these different avenues and ways to generate business. And CINC is one of the best platforms for us. And it encompasses probably 70% of our business. So being able to teach these people at an extremely simplistic but super engaging level what it means to be able to have a conversation and convert somebody is completely it's surprising to me how completely just like people can't do it. They just can't do it, right? So if you take Troy's a fantastic conversationalist. Like he can pick up and he can run into a tree and have a 30-minute conversation, right? So some people they just can't do that. They don't understand like what you mean by have a conversation. And no offense to anybody that's under the age of 30, but if you're under the age of 30, you were raised with a phone in your hand, and your conversations were 6 pictures of a guy dancing and a girl dancing, and then 3 watermelons and a explosion emoji, and then you're supposed to know what that means, right? So that doesn't sell homes, unfortunately, and it doesn't sell you. So being able to help people with what conversion looks like for us has been a big intricate part of kind of what we've done, and that in itself helps with retention.
And just so people, because Josh, I don't even know if you touched on it, because you got so many businesses, Mr. Entrepreneur, like you even see this in multiple parts of the country. So, I know a lot of times some folks might listen to someone and go, oh, they don't know that because they don't know my market. Like that's one of the beautiful things I love about Zach having you on here. It's like you know about the different areas. And I always even just tell realtors, and Josh, you would know from your end, but from my end, seeing it over the years, I'm like, hey, how many times have you changed brokerages since I've known you, right? Just you, the client, like you, the person wanting to start your team, and think about what led you to change. Like stuff as simple as that, right? Like don't overcomplicate it. Like try to fill in those gaps that made you change those companies before, because we know that most industry has, right? At least changed once, if not twice. And if you fill those gaps in, you'd be surprised how that could, help your retention. Culture too, to me, I know it's like the corny word, and I'll speak for Josh, like, his agents, I mean, they love working for him, right? Like when you have that culture of like them feeling ownership of it, that goes a long way. And I think if you look at the teams that typically rival the top 250, they are on that kind of, a lot of like family oriented things. I've had people over the years tell me, well, Troy, my agents don't trust me to put their database in my database because I own it, or like, the broker tell me that about the agents. And it's like, again, that's something software can't solve for you, right? Like that's something that if there is no trust there, then you're always going to have to just be recruiting constantly and filling, those holes, because they're going to continue to leak no matter what you do.
Yeah, and to add to what Troy just said, there's only 2 reasons that people leave brokerages, right? One of those is because they think they're going somewhere that has something that you don't have. 90% of the time you have it. You've done a very poor job of just reiterating that over and over and over. Hey, actually, we do have a mechanism that can help you with that. Actually, we do have X. We do have Y. And unfortunately for me, I've fallen victim to that before. It's like, hey, I'm going to go over to XYZ brokerage because they have, this, whatever this shiny thing is, right? So it's like, oh, we actually have that too. And they're like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Well, I mean, I thought I did tell you that like 90 times, but undoubtedly I didn't, so I think that's a big part of it too, is you got to, if you're going to be a team owner and you're going to be a team operator. I heard something one time that I thought was the most foolish statement I think I've ever heard in real estate. And it was, you can't work on your business if you work in your business. And I thought that was the most backward way of thinking I'd ever heard of anything in my life, right? So I don't know that there's a way that you can work on your business if you don't work in your business, right? So if it's a CRM, if it's a transaction management software, if it's any of these things and you don't work inside that yourself to know what it looks like when somebody brings you an issue or a problem, then there's no way that you can address those things and fix them, right? So if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I had a lead in the dashboard and it was doing X and Y and Z, I know everything there is to know. I stay in it every single day. I still make dials myself. Christy still makes dials herself. We know everything there is to know about that, and I'll fix it in 2 seconds, right? So that's
and kind of throwing Zach, like, I mean, keeping them engaged in that, like with a Sisu, right? Like it's like if you don't, like, that's like they don't have ownership of that. Like they don't feel that. They don't, most salespeople are competitive. I mean, sure, you have those that don't have don't have that maybe competitive vibe, right? But most of your A to B players are gonna want to see what others are doing, where they're at. But having the accountability for you, the owner, knowing where good spin is really succeeding, but also activities and promoting that. Like that's where that gamification and bringing that to the forefront with a Sisu, I think even helps you with not just growing that, but keeping it maintained.
You said something really interesting, Troy, and you kind of hit on the same topic, Josh, which is like, if you are thinking about starting a team and you as an agent have left multiple brokerages, like think about why you left and what you were after. At the same time, Josh is saying, if your team's not adopting the tech or saying the leads aren't bad, well maybe go call a few, right? And come up and you'll know the answers, right? It will be right there if you can taste it. And that's, I think, what you're talking about, Josh, is like getting into the business a little bit. You got to do that so that and you can solve the problems for your agents because you've experienced it, right? And just having that personal experience that you can then solve at scale and provide value for your team, right?
Yeah, I think that so many people get enamored with outsourcing, right? That the only way you can scale is to outsource. Okay, no, that's not the only way you can scale.
That was a radio voice.
Yeah, that was yeah. So the reality is that some things need to be outsourced, and some things absolutely do not need to be outsourced. And I think that someone that is trying to develop a team, having a serious reflection point of what of these things can I outsource, or what of these things can I make automated? Because I think a lot of people look at automation as the same thing, outsourcing, right? Certain things you can and certain things you cannot. And we could get into a list of 1,000 because we have a tech stack that rivals anybody in the country, right? So I think, and that's when people come in.
I see your little
all these different right there, yeah. So that's all the things that we use, and it all works together, and it all works in integration, and we simplify all of it. Because here's one thing, this is the grand, like when they pull the veil back, right? If you think that you're gonna have a team and you're gonna have them doing 20 hours of busy work just to fulfill all of your tech stack, then you are very, very, very sadly mistaken. It is not going to happen. Like team agents, I've had some of the best that I've ever had. And it was something that I learned early on. Nobody likes busy work. There's, and if you, I used to have somebody that tell me this about Sisu. They're like, if you don't put your deals in Sisu, then you're not going to know where all of your deals came from. And that was their only selling point, right? You're not going to know where your deals came from. And then when you go to try to do your reflection, you're not going to know this and that. If you close 10 to 15 deals a year, which is a pretty good number, right? You know where all 10 or 15 of your deals come from. You don't have to reflect back to Sisu to find that out. So if that's your only selling point to your tech stack, then you've lost, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, and that's what somebody that doesn't know what everything does, that's the kind of that's the kind of conversation
on value that they could be driving.
Yeah. So they're like, well, I can do that without that. So you lost me, right? You lost me, and why I should have to try to do that. So I think that for us, one thing that was extremely important is the things that we track inside Sisu. We made sure that it was extremely germane to what the agents wanted, what the agents needed. And then the parts that I need out of Sisu, just about, unfortunately for my transactional coordinator, a lot of that falls back on her, right? So it's her responsibility to fill in the gaps, So instead of giving a ton of busy work to my agents about you need to do this and you need to do this and put this here and move this around and do all this, that's what the transactional coordinator's for. And then we've got for them, we've got a core of 7, 8, 9 things, and this is what you want to do. And it's not cumbersome. We made it super easy. Mm-hmm. And I think we did the same thing on CINC, right? So the more simplistic you can make anything, that's how you make something scalable. Simplistic equals scalable, not automation. Now, there's certain things that can be automated, and God knows I use a bunch of it, but the ability for you to be able to scale your business comes from being able to simplify your business.
And Zach, you mentioned and not to bring it, you said something earlier about like when folks leave, like I almost think our industry, like I remember first selling, 2013, whenever 12 that was, like, and it was like we talked about impressions. Like we didn't really even talk about the end deal until, like you talked about everything that, like having a website, having people come to websites, because I'm sure you're paying radio ads, I'm sure you're paying billboards. And it's like we almost forget to even discuss that nowadays. Like that we just say, hey, let's just talk about the end deal. And I think that can sometimes translate for a team leader. Then your agent is missing all the stuff that you're actually doing, branding and having people put eyes on them that are outside of just that one transaction that like your tech stack's doing for them. So then they might make the mistake of, because they only hear deal, 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 deal. They're like, oh, I can just buy myself because then I can just get this deal from that same thing. It's like, no, you don't understand like the
what goes into it, the whole picture.
yeah.
You just see the cake, but you don't see all the ingredients. Right?
That was actually what Alvaro used. He goes, the big thing. This was like yesterday's speech. He was like, the big thing is we started on steak and potatoes, and now we've moved to cake. And if you give your child a choice with, hey, here's cake all over the table, here's steak and potatoes, they're gonna go straight for the cake.
Okay, so you said something earlier, Josh, that's really interesting, and I think this kind of brings together some of the concepts, because you got CINC and you've got Sisu, and Josh, you've been a longtime client of both, and I think it's really interesting the way that they come together. But anyone with the credit card could go buy those systems, right? If I want to have leads and I'm building my team and I know I need more leads, and I go talk to Troy, I can get a CINC set up probably pretty easily, and I can start pumping leads in there. And Josh, would you call it a lead cooperative versus like a true team, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're not careful, you end up with just a very transactional relationship with people where it's kind of like, I'm giving you leads and that's the value, right? And we're talking about building something that's a little more, it's deeper than that, right? And I think one of the ways that you can make it deeper is simplicity. Josh, you talked about, right? So simplicity of not just giving someone the leads, but helping them see like a formula for success, or we call it math of sales, right? Because there's a lot of math that goes into sales, and if you focus on the fundamentals, right, or the ingredients, right, you're going to get a lot further in, I'm going to stick with steak, Troy, because I'm going to stick with the cake because I like cake, right? If you focus on the ingredients, right, then you'll be able to bake it. But if you just focus on the cake itself, you're gonna miss parts of the equation, right? And I just want to show one thing. I didn't have a full like demo ready to go, but I wanted like a really quick view that people could see what this looks like, right? Because I think this is what a lot of agents don't get, right? So I might come into Josh's team, or not Josh's team, because Josh's team operates well, but some other team, and they're like, yeah, we got leads and we got all this stuff, and then day one I'm like, okay, well, what do I do, right? What this is, and when you're like an agent coming into Josh or some of our Sisu clients' businesses, is we're giving you the exact formula connected to your CINC CRM. So not only are we pumping leads in there, but we're saying, look, this is about how many conversations it's going to take, right? You should be having about 470 a month based on our conversion ratios. This agent's at 250. They're a little behind on their conversation goal. What percent of those conversations are turning into appointments, right? All right, we're doing pretty good on the buy side, right? But on the sell side, we're lacking a little, right? All right, what's our hold rate on those appointments? So it's just so much more simplified than just giving them leads and saying good luck. I'm giving you the leads, I'm giving you the formula to convert them. That's Sisu. CINC has the leads, and then the actual place you work to convert them obviously is right there in CINC too, right? So curious, Troy, from your perspective, from like a tech stack perspective, because you've probably seen it all. You've seen the people that go buy a platform and pump leads into it, and then 3 months later, the team's done. Right?
Yeah.
That have grown tremendously. So I'm curious your perspective on this stuff.
No, it's a great point, Zach, and it led me to this past week at the conference. Like I was saying earlier, I heard Chase Hughes speak, and I even think he made a point of nowadays, and this is like for all of us, right? Like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, but nowadays we are so like we hear the it's not the like we hear the symptoms and we think we're the doctor, right? And it's like, and he made great, I don't remember exact examples because examples are spot on, where just because you go to the doctor and you were able to Google what it's like to get a cold and you've got those three things, like it really, that doesn't mean you're the doctor. It doesn't mean you have the antidote then to how to get rid of them, et cetera. And I think like if a team leader has that like analogy, that like it even shows that just because you have these great tech stacks and you get to see them, you are the doctor, like, and making sure they understand that, I think, can go a long way. But yeah, seeing it over the years, like I like to pride myself on throughout my years that I didn't sell it to the folks who couldn't, and would recommend them other options that were not, something like a good fit maybe for them at that time and place. Because I do think that if you find yourself a true partner, that they should advise you accordingly. But those that are stubborn and those that are like, nope, I know that all these real, these Josh Rumbles out there have it, and if his country butt can do it, so can I. And they don't realize how smart the boy is, and because he makes it look simple. And then they try to do it themselves, and then 3 or 4 months later, they're like, well, this isn't working, this isn't doing it. And we all have like great account managers that help you throughout the system. And it's like, well, buddy, like, how do you think it's going to work? You're not calling them leads, or you're not, like all the stuff that you probably did before, you're not doing again. And like money just can't solve it, and fortunately, though, I've seen it the opposite way, where there have been those that have proved me wrong, right? There have been Sharon, way back before his real days, was out, brokerage in California. And I remember, he was talking to me about platform I was at that time many moons ago, and we were discussing what was needed. I was like, I just don't think it's a good fit for you, because basically I was worried about the activities, not the money side, right? And sure enough, he got it, did the activities, so there's been plenty of times that I've been proven wrong, right? But are the one agent that then creates, Trey Willard, guy we were speaking of earlier. I met him. It was just him and his wife, right? I mean, now they're up to what, like 50 or 60 agents, I think. Top team in Louisiana, et cetera. And maybe at that time I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this is right. Are you sure you understand? But I think that end of the day, when I think of what makes a true like team leader that's starting, go to that great long lasting team leader over the years and not fail out or go rogue over the industry, is they treat it like a business. Like Netflix didn't always, go in the red or go in the black, or, I was like, which one is which? Red's bad. Yeah, they were probably in the red one month. Like, but, like Josh mentioned earlier, people get so transactional. And so, I don't want to mess up what you said about they get where they want basically the deal, right? And they just want to give up their split of the money. And that's different than actual team or actual business owner. So I got to have that mindset correct, or you really shouldn't be doing it.
Josh, do you feel like you were always there? Did you have to switch that mentality at some point? Like specifically when you started on your team building?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We went through so many evolutions of what we have now. One thing that Christy and I pride ourselves on, we're an evolutionary business, right? So tech changes, people change, things change, the market changes. There's so much variable in what this is. The only way, and I always say this, and I have when I'm having a conversation with somebody, your average franchise agent closes between 3 and 6 deals a year. We close 300 deals a year. So what it takes you a year to see, I can see in a week, right? So I can make a very quick pivot. I can make a very quick change. I can make a small adjustment. I can do all of those things because I have the data of the baseline of what that is. So, and you take something like what you were showing, Zach, preview of what Sisu is. I couldn't tell you how many times I went back in and I'm like, okay, Craig's making this many dials and he's having this many conversations and he's closing this many transactions. All right, Mandy, you're here and you're having this many conversations and you're not. So where was her pain point at? Her pain point was she could have the conversations, but she couldn't close. So where did I need to focus on what you needed help on? It wasn't that you weren't trying. It wasn't that you were being lazy. It was the fact that we needed to work on what your conversion conversation training looked like. And I think that for everybody that's on this call, I would encourage you to stay on this until it's over, because we're going to get in some real technical ways to make these things work super emphatically well. And it's going to be worth the money you paid for this times 3. Wasn't this free? Yeah. So it's going to be definitely worth the money, guys. I promise you. So, And when you're able to break but that's the things inside your business that you automate, right? So now I can take a report and I can look at it and I can say, this person's here. And okay, I can see that this is where your shortcomings is. What do we need to work on so that you can take this number to this number? All right, your effort's here. That's what we coach more than anything, effort. So when people start to put in the effort and they don't see the results, then we can drill down to find where the shortcomings is or where the bottleneck is to where we can get to that point. So you go back 3 or 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, to when we started to build the mortgage branch and bring that up. The entire premise behind that had zero to do with making more money. It had nothing in the world to do with I'm going to open mortgage so that I can make more money. So what that was for is because we identified here that through the millions of conversations that Christy and I had, that most of these people, the next step in their journey from being a PPC lead was to have a conversation with somebody about mortgage, right? So it was like we were trying to go a bridge too far. It's like, hey, why don't you come in and sit down with me and let me tell you all the things that you already know. You know, houses have walls, and I heard some have windows and doors and all these things. They're like, I don't care about any of that. So the most logical next step for 99% of the PPC leads that we had talked to was that they were at the milestone of they needed to have a conversation with somebody about mortgage because of the uncertainty and the volatility inside of what mortgage was, right? So that's where we developed the plan of we were mortgage first. Every single person that we had a conversation with, we were going to lead them down that path. And then that path was, this is our resolution. So to me, when you're having a first contact conversation with a lead or even a follow-up conversation with a lead, you can give that lead gifts inside that conversation. So the first gift that you can give anybody is the gift of understanding. And it's not enough for you to understand. Lord knows that's not enough. What you have to do is you have to make sure that they understand that you understand. That's truly what understanding is. Because if you understand, but they don't understand, you don't understand, then they don't understand. Right? So that is the absolute first gift that you can give them, is the gift of understanding by asking good qualifying questions. And the best gift that you can ever give anybody is the gift of recommendation. And the way that you make that recommendation is what solidifies the recommendation. So, you know, like with a CINC lead, and I would have a conversation, hey, you guys thinking about, you're going to pay cash or take advantage of some financing options? You know, right there, how soft was that? How coy was that? That was a very good lead in. Instead of, you're going to pay cash, you're going to have to get your broke ass a loan. You know, so you got to have coy when you're saying these things, right? So, you know, taking advantage of some financing options. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to get financed. Hey, I completely get it. Me too, right? So you're trying to build a little commonality. You know, I think for us, you know, the next step is let's have a conversation with a mortgage advisor and kind of let them lay out a plan full of programs and what your payment comfortability is. Does that sound fair? And they're like, yeah. You know why that sounds fair? Because that was the next logical step that we were at. We just hit the milestone. And then we queue up as a team 40 lending consults a week. And you let that sink in, 40 a week, and is almost exclusively from CINC. You know, and then that's just our team in the 2 markets that we were in. You take all of the rest of those, and I think it's in the hundreds, right? So we hundreds of these things a week, all off of CINC leads. And the reason that works is because my mission has always been to understand how this works. If you can understand if a lead is inside the buy cycle, if they're not in the buy cycle, all of these different things, then you can truly like understand what the next milestone is, so that when that next proposition from you comes, it really makes sense. That is how you convert Google leads. That's how you convert Facebook leads. That's how you convert Zillow leads. That's how you convert the guy you met at the grocery store. That's how you convert all of these, you know. And one of the biggest things that we preach after preach after preach is be interested, not interesting. You know, you're not trying to be the guy from the Dos Equis commercial, the most interesting guy in the world. They don't care. They don't know, like, or trust you. You've only been on the phone for 3 minutes. What you need to do is you need to be interested in every single thing that they're saying, because they're telling you how to sell them. As they talk, they're telling you how to sell them. They're telling you what their pain point is. They're telling you what their pleasure point is. They're telling you what the catalyst was that got them to get online and look at homes. And then if you can discover that, then you can drill back into that. And then somewhere in between there and there is a problem, and then you can solve it, typically with that recommendation.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's a great point, Josh. I think that's the difference in buying and selling a home. Like people, when they are selling a home, the person looking is looking for an agent. When people are buying a home, they're looking for the house, not
oh,
the agent.
mhm.
Yeah, and it's like it gets lost. Like it gets lost in translation sometimes because they try to either apply both mindsets or they want to rely on what all they've done, and it's great. I'm not saying it's not important, right? Because it surely has a time and place. But like you said, not when you first meet. I didn't walk up to my wife at the bar and just say, "Hey, I'm gonna
Wanna
marry
get
you." It's
married?
the first words out of my mouth. Yeah, you
Mhm.
know, had to give her a whole bunch of BS first. So
And I think too that that's the reason that so many people were so up in arms about the NAR ruling, right? So they're like,
Mhm.
and it really didn't make sense because when you have a conversation with somebody, it's just like what Troy said. You're kind of dating back and forth. Hey, you should get these people to sign an agreement with you that they're going to work with you exclusively. Like you have not had the opportunity yet to even try to see if you mesh well or any of those things. And I think that's why you've seen such an opposition and pushback on it. And I say that I've closed 2,700 deals and we've never closed one without a buyer's agency agreement. So I understand implicitly what that is to the nth degree, right? So, but there's a time and place for everything. And the reason that people didn't like that is the same reason that you can't do one call closes on every single person. Like there's no way for you to put something out there and develop rapport and try to find out what somebody's pain point is and to find out why they need to move if the only thing that you've done right off the bat is trick them into signing something that they didn't want to sign to begin with, right? So I think it was counterproductive to people that wanted to build relationships versus being transactional. So people that were transactional probably had no cares about that. Good, that's just another guy that I can get to sign whatever, right? But if you're trying to be relational and that's your business model is relational over transactional, then that was something that you didn't care for because that's another thing. Like we're trying to be coy, we're trying to make you feel good about the situation. We're trying to become your friend so that we can help you in that way.
So, Josh, what I'm hearing, you kind of laid out a little bit of a framework that sounds like it's really worked well for you converting specifically sync leads, but I think it applies to any lead. But I think it's really cool in this conversation where a lot of y'all are probably sync users or you have a sync, account and you're maybe generating some of those sync leads or PPC leads, right? But what I'm hearing is you start with understanding and the suggesting or what did you call it, recommending or like you're finding
Recommendation.
the
Yeah.
next logical step. And what you found, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that next logical step often is talking about financing and talking to mortgage, right? To an LO. So am I seeing this right that was becoming such a theme? Is that really why you pursued mortgage, was like you wanted to own that part of the process and because it was so often the next step, you wanted to be able to more easily make it an easier path, right? I think that's brilliant.
Absolutely. And the thing is we've all had mortgage partners that were not partners. We've all had mortgage partners that was the lady that brought cookies to the office and then you give her all your deals. And in return, you got maybe cookies next Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. So we've all had those type of people. I wanted a partnership in a way that every single one of my LOs makes dials inside Sync, right?
Your sync with your team, same.
Yep, and every other platform that we partner with, all 27 of them, right? So the reason that they work so diligently for these people is because they know what it's like to prospect a lead. These other people that we had always partnered with, they didn't know how difficult it is to prospect a lead and have a fantastic conversation and cultivate all this stuff and then hand them off to a partner that was like, hey, your person can't buy. If you'll get me another one, maybe I'll get them pre-qualified. It's like, what? I worked so hard. I worked so hard to get that one. So my people understand that, the people inside my group, they understand how difficult it is to prospect a lead. They understand how difficult it is to have a conversation with somebody and go through that. So they're empathetic to that, to the point that, they're going to keep trying to get a hold of that person. They're going to try to get them pre-qualified. They're going to try to get them into a repair program if they need it. They're going to try to get them into the whatever that next step is, because they understand how difficult it is to prospect leads out of the dashboard, because they have a respect for it because they do it themselves. That's what a strategic partnership is supposed to look like, right? So I think that it's not necessarily that we make money off of each one of these mortgages, because I wouldn't lie to you and say that we don't, because we do. So but the reality is this was birthed from that understanding. If we know that 37 people inside this transaction get paid, the more of those people that you can have strategic partnerships with and understand what the outcome is going to be, then you know what the outcome is going to be for the entire transaction, right? And about 20 of those are on the mortgage side. Mm-hmm. So when you have those people that are on your team in that way, that was the one proponent that kind of took us from here to here, and it was because identifying the fact that they need to have a conversation with somebody to clean up this mortgage conundrum, right? Mm-hmm. And a tactic that I use all the time, and Christy's masterful at this, probably better than I am, is I'm going to, if you say you need financing, then I'm going to muddy the water with a bunch of mumbo jumbo jargon about 0% down and DPAs and closing cost assistance and this program and that program. Has anybody talked to you about this, and this? And then their head's kind of spinning. And then I have a clarity moment. They'll ask some questions like, well, what about X? Hey, it sounds like you've got questions. I think the next step for us is let's have a conversation with that mortgage advisor and kind of let them lay all those things out for you. Does that sound fair? And that to me that was the dynamic shift too for my agents. Now all of a sudden that's a win. So I don't have to set a buyer's agreement. I don't have to set a buyer's consult for it to be a win. I can set a mortgage advisor consult, and that's a win. And it's about 100 times easier to set because that's actually where they're at than up here.
But the key is having the right mortgage partner, right? And
yes,
I think somebody on this call listening could, because they're not going to go start a mortgage company overnight. You probably took
you just need the right strategic partner.
Go find the right partner, right? Look at the person, and what I'm hearing, what you're looking for is the person who cares to nurture the leads the same way you do, the same way works, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and if they want to be inside your sink, you put them inside your sink. If they don't want to be inside your sink, then the one thing that's a common,
they don't want to be inside your sink. Are they really the right partner? You know
right.
what I mean? Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Zach, glad you said it.
Yeah. So, and that's
they're scared of a CRM. They probably don't.
Yes. If they don't want to be in yours, they probably don't have one. And if they don't want to be in yours and they do have one, they're not using it either. So, and I think
I couldn't help. Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I think that's the differentiator between people that close at a super high level is how they are able to link with these strategic partners to elevate everything.
It's cool. It's very cool.
I was going to make the joke. Oh no, I was going to make the joke that when he made the cookies about the mortgage company, I have sent him cookies. So that was going to be the joke. But we had this speed the agent thing. His team closed a $1 million deal. So we were like showing sync leads to that. So send cookies. So I was like, I feel bad for sending cookies, but we'll make it up with something.
Like cookies, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're getting close to time. I would love anyone in the chat that has questions, please drop them in, and we might be able to tackle a few of those. Let us know what you'd like. Josh, it's really interesting listening to your story. The mortgage piece is really fascinating. I think that could unlock a lot of things for a lot of people, especially, those of you that are already on Sync and you're getting these leads and you're looking to convert them at a higher rate. I think Josh just laid out some stuff that's really going to help there. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, Josh, if I wanted to interact with you more, I know you do these Monday calls, or no, they're weekly calls, right? Tell us a little more about the community you run and you're focused on conversion. And I'd love to, get people more information on that in case they're interested.
Absolutely. So there's the one thing that, I talk to a lot of people that are on the fence. Hey, should I go with Sync? Should I not go with Sync? And one thing that I think that Sync has that is probably overlooked or undervalued more than anything is their training. Their training is better. So I'm pretty fortunate. I'm in a lot of different places. Troy and I have had this conversation. I've got 3 other CRMs that are just comp to me. They're like, hey, will you just take this and tell me what you think? None of them, and I'm not going to mention any names because that's terrible, but None of them even hold a candle to what this is on the training, on the support, and all that stuff. So in that same vein, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central Time, we do a conversion call, and we have some of the best people in the country on that thing. And it's from all over the place. You know, got Andrew Bryan's team from Delaware. We got Brian Buckley's team from down in South Florida. We got Bill Helton from the Dallas area that is amazing. And the list kind of goes on and on and on all over the country with a lot of people to see a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different ways of how to convert these leads. And the thing is, it always kind of comes back to that same thing. It's be relational over transactional, be relational over transactional. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to set mortgage consults. It doesn't matter if you're trying to set home evaluations. It doesn't matter if you're trying to set a buyer's consult. It doesn't matter. All of this starts with going through a great discovery call and then giving the gifts, right? Hey, I understand everything that you just told me, and I'm going to regurgitate half of that back to you so that you understand that I understood. And then I think here's the problem inherently across the board with conversion. 1,000% everybody I've ever talked to, you can write this on the wall like Peter told Paul, that you do not queue up your next phone call, your next interaction before you summate your call that you're on. And you have got to do that if you're going to convert at a very high level. It has got to be, hey, here is the plan. Here's what we are going to do next. And if it's something that you're going to do, then there's a reason that you're calling back. If your reason for calling back is, hey, this is Josh from Excel Realty. Do you still not want to buy anything from me? Fantastic. Call you next week. That don't work. It never worked one time. Right. So I think that being able to really queue up what that next interaction is supposed to look like, that is the dynamic piece that shifts, that changes people that convert and don't convert at a very high level. So that's one of the things like that's kind of what we focus on, because people will ask the question, hey, kind of tell me, what does that look like? You know, what would that look like? You know, and we get into all those things on that call of, this is what that looks like. This is how you queue up what that next interaction should look like. That and about 1,000 other tactics and topics. So anybody that wants to copy that email, you guys send me an email. I'll send you an invite link to that call. You'll find it extremely beneficial. We put a lot of time and effort into that. My team's on it. All the lending team is on it, all those things. So we use that in a way that is beneficial to my team, but is also beneficial to everybody that's on it.
I love it. And thanks for sharing that. I put Josh's email in the chat, so take advantage. Troy, I'd love to hear if I'm, maybe not on CINC yet. I'm looking to get started with CINC. What's my best next step?
It would just cincpro.com. You can get all your info from our website, or even if you wanted to email me, it's troy.mixon@cincpro.com. I'm more than happy to handhold you not only through the process, but what I love and really trying to change since coming to CINC is you're not just finding a tech stack, you're finding a tech partner. So I'll be here after you sign up too. Hopefully you can get to see at one of our training events that we host, and happy to even introduce like others, and vice versa too, Zach. Like, I think it's important. We mentioned earlier how there are so many options for clients nowadays, right? But I always ask them to look at the company itself, right? Mm-hmm. When people have been here, and that's why I love like creating partnerships and making them stronger with like folks like you who have known forever, who, Sisu's been in the market, not going anywhere. And it's like, making sure you're looking at not just the bells and whistles of somewhere, but like what's the meat and potatoes behind it too. Sorry to switch it from cake, but don't get me wrong, I like both. Just I ask that you always look at both equations, right? And this goes back and forth too, because I plan on sharing this with our sales team, so I'm sure we'll be sending the prospects, like for people to be able to keep track and get engagement with their teams. Like what is it for Sisu that we can make sure, that they're looking at the best in class for their tech stack?
Yeah. You're asking me?
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, all of these things pair so well together when you put CINC together with Sisu and it's integrated, right? That's gonna make sure that you're not just pumping in leads, but you have the accountability piece. You've got Josh's call that we dropped on here for the actual hard skills, the training, the conversion, right? And jumping on there. So it all just integrates and pairs very well. I would say anyone looking to look at Sisu, actually, I put a link in the chat. That's kind of the reason it's an ugly looking link is because it's going to tag you in our system. We're doing a discount for anybody that comes to us through this webinar. And the discount is usually our user seats are 20 to 25 per seat. If you're building a team, you're going to want those seats without having to pay for them. So we're doing 5 free seats just included with the plan. If you're coming to us through this webinar, and we're waiving all your setup fees too. So take advantage of that if you're not already on Sisu. If you're not already on CINC, take advantage. Like really, when you go all in on something like this, where it's all integrated and tight, that's where you see the benefits that Josh is seeing. Like you got 27 agents, amazing retention. You've been able to step into mortgage, and I don't know, Josh, you just seem really happy and like you're running a good business. So
Well, I even go community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I go back to community. Like, think about that community, right? Think about CC community, Sync community. Like just like we're talking about what you need for you and your agents, being part of those communities as well, to me, adds so much value that the price tags doesn't even, really do it justice. But
oh yeah, that they'll make you money, both of them. And going back, 10 years ago when we first started this, CINC was not the most open company to be able to do some of these partnerships with. Kudos to them. They have worked so incredibly hard to make their tech way more integratable with these API keys. And I don't even know if that's a word, integratable.
it is.
But most certainly
API
is.
was.
Yeah. So the API keys and some of those things that we're doing now, and the way that their staff's able to integrate these things has been a game changer for us in a lot of different ways. The API now flowing back and forth from CINC to Sisu is something new. My sales rep at Sisu is Amber, and she's amazing. And we've worked on several things together to help make that work even better. There was things that I didn't even realize that we could do now that we're starting to work on. So that integration of the two systems talking back and forth, that's the kind of things that you have to have if you're wanting to grow and scale a team. Is you have to have systems that talk, mainly so that you don't double work your agents. If there's one thing, if you want to talk about retention, start double working your agents and see how long they stick around.
Yeah.
Because it won't be long, I can promise you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Josh, Troy, thank you guys so much. It was really good talking with both of you. I learned a lot myself. We'll send a recording of this out. It'll just go to your email automatically. You can share it to whoever you want to share it to. If there's something that you got value, you're like, oh, I wish my director of ops was listening to that, go ahead and forward it to them so that they can share in that value. But always a pleasure, guys. Thank you. Thanks to everybody. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it, brother.